This is Just a Thought, a podcast for parents ready to change their mind and change their lives. This podcast is packed full of the one thing that will change your life, your parenting, and your relationships. Don't believe me? It's just a thought. I'm your host, Christina Stead, and this is episode 12, Overcome and Achieve the Impossible. Sometimes as parents, the more we need hope or a dream or a goal, the less we want to try to hope or set or achieve. Why? Probably because of the thoughts that cause fear of missing out, fear of disappointment, fear of failing, beliefs that tell us that we don't deserve better, that we can't change for the better, that it's too late, that things are impossible to change. But for those who might be thinking that, what if those are just thoughts, not facts? What if our brains are just doing what they do in automatic mode and are focusing on the worst parts of whatever we're choosing to think about? What if we can strengthen our brains by thinking new thoughts, making new roads, and finding that our thoughts are the only thing we need to change? What if things are only impossible because we haven't seen them happen yet? What if your dreams are possible? Are you willing to believe in them? As I dream, I love to keep these hope-filled thoughts and remind myself that whatever I hope for is totally possible. Is it what I ultimately want? I get to decide that along the way. Sometimes I have dreams that seem good, but they seem to contradict each other. Nowadays, I like to think that there's a way they will both work out. Planes use gravity to fly. That seems like a contradiction. I don't need to prove that something is possible to believe that it's possible. I don't need it to happen to feel confident, successful, happy, or whatever it is I want to feel. I can feel all those things now. My thoughts, beliefs, and feelings will move with me even into my new circumstances. When my husband and I got married 11 years ago, he had $2,000 saved in the bank, and I had $200. He worked full-time sweeping streets and teaching guitar lessons and going to school, and I went to hair school full-time and overtime. My husband was bringing in about $400 a month, and I wasn't bringing in any. Right before we got married, we were looking into where we could live and realizing that rent was more than we made combined in a month. But we found out about low-income housing, and we were able to get into a beautiful little apartment, and it cost $200 a month. And so we began. Dave was careful and frugal, and I really wanted to be. Neither of us wanted to get into debt. He already had a car he had bought with cash a year before, and that's how things stood for us financially. We sat down together one day to dream, and we decided to make a Microsoft Word document with images from online to showcase our dreams. We had never heard of the term vision board back then, but that's what we were doing, is making a vision board. We put pictures of the things that looked like what we hoped we would see as part of our lives in the future, like a baby. Interestingly, the picture of the baby we chose was a cute, bald, blue-eyed baby, which were the characteristics of both our girls when they were born. They were both bald and blue-eyed. We also wanted a motorcycle, a house paid in full by a certain point, and a trip to Hawaii, among other things. We put dates next to the pictures to show when we wanted to have achieved that goal. And then we laughed about it. We thought it was impossible. We prayed about it, hoping it was possible. And then we got to work, trying to reach for our absolutely crazy endeavors. We didn't really think we would achieve our goals, especially within the allotted time. We saved a certain amount of money every month. At first, it was just $10 a month. Then later, it turned into $100. Soon, we had saved up so much that we reached the top bracket of the low-income housing. Our rent was $500 a month. By that point, we were making about $1,200 a month combined and had saved about $5,000 in savings. So having savings is what knocked us into a higher bracket. We decided at that point that we no longer wanted to be in low-income housing. We wanted to start reaching for our dreams of being independent. So we moved into a studio apartment that cost $500 a month. It was a big stretch for us to pay the same amount a month for a smaller space, but we felt it was a healthy step for us. We could afford our own apartment now. As time went on, we had different opportunities arise, opportunities to save money, opportunities to make money, which all of them, I believe, were signs from God acknowledging our desires, approving them, sending us on our way. We chose to sacrifice a lot to stay out of debt and to save money every month. There's not a right way or a wrong way to do it. This is the way we chose to do it, and we usually liked our reasons for the sacrifices we made. It's interesting because we didn't look at our vision board often. In fact, in some ways, we just kind of forgot about it because we honestly thought our dreams were impossible. But we never stopped trying to work toward the impossible things we had outlined. One day we looked and realized that we had already achieved many of the goals miraculously. And those we hadn't achieved yet were soon to be completed. And we completed almost all of the items by or close to the date we had decided would be nice. It was incredible. We were shocked. One of our biggest, most outrageous goals was to pay off our house by the time Dave was 31. Honestly, there wasn't much to why we chose that age, except Dave had been inspired by someone else who had done it by that age, so he wanted to do it too. And I just liked the idea of not having debt. I wanted to be 100% debt-free and independent, as I considered it, as soon as possible. So age 31 it was. Dave was actually 32 by the time we paid our house off in full. But that didn't take away from the miracle of it all. We felt so blessed and so thrilled, but also a little disappointed too, because nothing felt that different. We thought that achieving that goal would feel life-changing, but honestly, it was a little anticlimactic. And it's funny, but I'm finding that that is a very normal way to feel, even after achieving the impossible. That's because our thoughts are what determine our feelings, even though many like to give credit for their feelings to their circumstances. It's really the journey, not the destination, that changes us. What we choose to think, then feel, then do along the way is what makes our experience. Soon after achieving mine and Dave's biggest, most crazy and impossible goal, we realized we still had more wants. And I wondered, is it healthy to have wants? Will we ever be satiated? Is it healthy to always be reaching higher and higher for more and for better? And I think it is. I think wants and desires are placed in us for a reason, and they keep us dreaming and hoping and creating. But no matter what we want, having it is not going to make us feel happy or successful or satisfied. Only our thoughts will. We can feel all those feelings before we reach our goals. I love retreats. You guys know this. I think I'm brought it up quite a few times in my podcasts about things I've learned at different retreats. But I was at another retreat a few years ago, and a woman named Leslie Householder spoke at the retreat. She shared her story that led to her achieving her goals of success. When she and her husband first got married, they were young, poor college students, but they decided they wanted her to be a stay-at-home mom. And so they made a goal that they would earn $1,000 a month so they could afford to have her stay home. But unfortunately, they couldn't keep up with their expenses, and they started to get into debt. And so she went back to work. Soon after that, they decided to start a home-based business in hopes that she could stay home and they would still have income. They began going to seminars so they could learn to present ideas, speak, set goals, and hopefully start making a lot more money. Their big starting goal was $2,000 a month. But during this time, both of them struggled with hope and they experienced a lot of doubt. They wanted to earn lots of money, retire early, and become a full-time mom and dad. They always asked themselves, why are we so different from everyone else? Why don't we get the same results they do? Which are just thoughts, mind you. Those thoughts are tricky ones that show up dressed as circumstances. They act like they're facts facts, and that's just the way things are. But they're still just thoughts. So despite their financial difficulties, they often scraped money together, and they would fly to different states to attend seminars in hopes of gaining some nugget of knowledge that would change their lives. At one point, they were told that if they presented 2,000 presentations, they would triple their income. So Leslie charted 2,000 presentations and carefully tracked each one, and they achieved their goal to make 2,000 presentations, but they didn't triple their income. She was devastated and confused. Why hadn't it worked for them? They attended a conference one day where a man named Bob Proctor spoke. Leslie found herself bored and uninterested in what he was saying and the way he was saying it, and didn't really pay attention. She was surprised when he finished speaking with how the room exploded with conversation and excitement about what he had said, but neither her nor her husband had paid any attention. So later, when they found out Bob Proctor would be speaking again, they purposely attended his next presentation, even though the first one had been so boring to them. He presented the Stickman presentation. You can look it up. She said they suddenly got it. The lights turned on, and 3 months later, they had tripled their income. What he had taught them was as simple as this: dream big, picture what you want, believe in that vision. In other words, believe that it's possible. You can make what you want happen. One day, as Leslie was envisioning how she wanted her home to look and feel like, she decided she wanted a certain headboard for her and her husband's bed. So she started to envision it. She didn't know how she would get it because it was very expensive and way out of budget. But she believed in her vision. She set her intention, and unseen help brought it to her. She found herself driving home one day and felt an urge to turn onto a different route than usual. And there on the side of the road was the headboard she was dreaming of. She ran up to the house it was lying in front of and found a woman was in fact getting rid of it and was happy to give it to her. That's just one example of many. I thought it was so interesting when Leslie was talking and sharing all her examples. I thought it was funny that at the beginning of the story, even though she talks about how dirt poor they were, that they still somehow got money together to take all these flights to these seminars. And I thought, oh my goodness, it's interesting how even by accident that goes along with her story. They were intentional on trying to figure out how to make money. That's where their intention was. And so they found ways to make money to go on flights. The same thing happened when she decided to make 2,000 presentations. That became her goal and her intention. And so she made 2,000 presentations. It just really speaks to me that is what matters here, is where we set our intention, what our focus on, and what we're dreaming about. That's what we're going to achieve. So what's possible? Here's one more quote from Leslie. There is more good that God wants done in this world. There is more than enough good for everyone to accomplish. Leslie also shared one of her favorite quotes from President Boyd K. Packer. There are two kinds of faith. One of them functions ordinarily in the life of every soul. It is the kind of faith born by experience. It gives us certainty that a new day will dawn. It is the kind of faith that relates us with confidence to that which is scheduled to happen. There is another kind of faith, rare indeed. This is the kind of faith that causes things to happen. It is the kind of faith that is worthy and prepared and unyielding, and it calls forth things that otherwise would not be. It is the kind of faith that moves people. It is the kind of faith that sometimes moves things. It is a marvelous, even a transcendent power, a power as real and as invisible as electricity. Directed and channeled, it has great effect. See it done. See the end as you intend. Close your eyes. See it on the other side of being accomplished. What's the achievement going to look like? Smell like? Feel like? Taste like? Bring every part of the senses into your vision that you possibly can. The more thoughts you can bring into it in that direction, the more believable it will be to you. What will life look like when your finances aren't stressful anymore? When you weigh what you want? When you can achieve the health you desire? when you can show up the way you want in your parenting and your marriage? What do you allow or not allow as that person? What are you willing to do to make your dreams happen? Try and answer these questions with feelings rather than words. Imagine what it would look like, feel like, smell like, taste like, sound like to have things the way you want. We're all emotionally connected with our experiences. We have psychological responses when our minds think something is happening. We can use this to our advantage when we allow our subconscious to dwell on what we really want to a point that we feel we are already experiencing the results. To change how you want to show up, you have to see it to believe it. If you do these things, then you will not be the limiting factor to receiving all you want in life. To be grateful for things before they are reality is faith. When you don't know what to do with a child who's struggling, imagine that same child thriving. What does that look like? How does it feel? What is your response to that child as they thrive? Now believe it as possible and start responding the way you want to now. Don't imagine these things to change and manipulate others. Do it to feel and treat others the way that supports who you want to be. Full of love and hope. This leads to an inspired and an instinctive state. When our intention is set, our action will become inspired and instinctive. Our brains are always producing images. We can either imagine the best case scenario or the worst or somewhere in between or 1,000 other things. We can always choose to reach for the best. Ether 12:19 says, "And there were many whose faith was so exceedingly strong, even before Christ came, who could not be kept from within the veil, but truly saw with their eyes the things which they had beheld with an eye of faith, and they were glad." Imagine how things feel before they happen. Thank God for all the things that you've already seen with hope. Then be willing to be a little vulnerable, a little uncomfortable, disappointed even. Imagine a baby who's standing straight up, feet planted, trying to walk. At some point, they let go of that comfortable, safe balance and instead focus on the rhythm of their legs, taking turns to achieve the results of walking. Our thoughts, our feelings, our desires, and actions will align through our faith, belief, asking, and work. Set a goal. You'll be creating with God. We have the seeds already in us to create. In Doctrine and Covenants 67:3, it says, "Ye endeavored to believe that ye should receive the blessing which was offered unto you. But behold, verily I say unto you, there were fears in your hearts. Verily, this is the reason that ye did not receive." Lord, help our unbelief. God wants to give us all of our righteous desires. But if our lives, minds, hearts, and hands are full of fear, of disappointment, fear of failure, fear of missing out, there's no room to receive. Start moving forward. Ask, believe, receive. God will take care of the details. This is Christina Stead, and this is Just a Thought.